Connor Blake arrived at Pierce Global Tower just past 5 in the afternoon, his delivery uniform faded at the shoulders, a smear of engine grease still on the back of his right hand, from fixing the van barely an hour before. Diana Pierce stepped off the executive elevator at that same moment, tailored blazer, perfect posture, 12 investors waiting upstairs. She looked at Connor once. Just once. Then, loud enough for the entire lobby to hear, she said, "You're just a delivery driver." Connor said nothing. He crouched down and retied his daughter's shoelace. 3 minutes later, someone screamed, "Watch until the end." Because the moment Connor steps out of that elevator will change Diana Pierce forever. A light rain had been falling on downtown for most of the afternoon, the kind that made the glass towers along Meridian Avenue look like they were sweating. Pierce Global Tower rose above the others' 42 floors of steel and tinted windows, the kind of building that had its own gravitational pull. People walked a little faster near it, stood a little straighter. Even the pigeons seemed to keep their distance. Connor Blake pulled his delivery van into the loading zone at 4:58, cut the engine, and checked the slip on his clipboard for the third time. The delivery was marked urgent. One component, an auxiliary control board for a commercial elevator system, requested directly by the building's facilities coordinator. The part was sealed in a foam-lined case. Connor had handled hundreds like it in a different life. He set the case on the passenger seat and turned to the back. "We're here, Bug," he said. Mia Blake was 6 years old and had her father's eyes dark, steady, and a little too serious for her age. She sat buckled into the rear seat with a small backpack shaped like a rabbit pressed against her chest, its floppy ears drooping over her forearms. The sitter had canceled that morning. Not a no-show, not a call-out, just a short text at 7:49 that said something came up. Connor had spent 12 minutes trying to find a backup before accepting that he would have to bring Mia along for the final delivery of his shift. He had not complained about it, not out loud. He opened the rear door and helped her down to the sidewalk. The rain had slowed to a mist, barely enough to feel but enough to darken the pavement. Connor tucked the delivery case under one arm and held Mia's hand with the other. "Is this where you work?" Mia asked, looking up at the tower. "Not exactly. I just deliver things here sometimes. It's really tall." "It is. Do you think the people at the top can see our van?" He glanced back at the dented white van with its faded company logo. The passenger side mirror was held in place by electrical tape. "Maybe," he said. "Probably not." The lobby of Pierce Global Tower was the kind of space that made you feel small if you let it. White marble floors, 40 feet of polished ceiling, a curved reception desk staffed by 2 assistants in matching charcoal blazers. A large screen on the east wall was cycling through slides, annual shareholder highlights, revenue projections, a photograph of Diana Pierce at a ribbon-cutting event. The lobby smelled faintly of fresh flowers and expensive air conditioning. Connor walked to the desk and set the case on the edge, careful to keep his greasy hand away from the marble. He gave his name and the delivery code. The assistant typed, frowned slightly, typed again. "There's a verification protocol for components being brought into the system's corridor," she said. "I'll need to contact security." "That's fine," Connor said. "I'll wait." Mia had pressed close to his leg when they walked in. Now she tugged at his sleeve and whispered up at him. "Are we allowed to be here?" Connor looked down at her. Around them, men and women in fitted suits moved with the practiced ease of people who belonged in expensive places. A junior executive glanced at Connor's uniform, then away, the way people look at things they've already decided not to see. "We're allowed to be anywhere we need to be for work," Connor said quietly. "Don't let anyone make you feel like that's not true." Mia thought about this. She pulled her rabbit backpack straps a little tighter, lifted her chin just slightly, and nodded. Connor almost smiled. He turned back to the desk and waited, the delivery case balanced on the edge of the marble, the rain tapping softly against the glass behind him. The elevator bank on the east side of the lobby had 3 sets of brushed steel doors. 2 were standard guest access. The third, set slightly apart from the others and framed in dark wood trim, was the VIP elevator, the one that accessed the private executive floors without stopping for general traffic. A small plaque beside it read, "Executive access only." That morning, a maintenance flag had appeared in the building's internal monitoring system. A thermal sensor in the auxiliary control board had logged a minor anomaly. The facilities log described it as low priority. No one had changed that status. Diana Pierce came through the executive elevator doors at 5 minutes past 5. She moved the way people do when they've trained themselves to show nothing. Shoulders level, pace measured, expression blank except for the focused quality behind her eyes that her staff had learned to recognize as the thing that meant, "Do not bring me problems right now." She was 28 years old and had been CEO of Pierce Global for 2 years. In those 2 years, she had acquired a reputation for being intelligent, exacting, and very difficult to read. Her assistant, Catherine Brooks, walked 2 steps behind her, tablet in hand. Logan Harris, her chief operating officer, kept pace on her left, talking. "The shareholder meeting starts at 6:30, Logan was saying. "We have the Hathaway Group and 2 representatives from the Carlyle Fund attending in person. Presentation is locked. We just need the VIP elevator running smoothly for escort access." "I was told there was a flag on it," Diana said. "A minor thermal reading in the secondary control board. Aidan Cole is coming in to look at it this evening." "It's not flagged as critical." Diana's eyes swept the lobby without breaking stride, and for a moment they landed on Connor at the reception desk. He was in a beige uniform with a company patch on the chest, a grease mark visible on his right hand, a small girl standing next to him with a stuffed rabbit backpack. Diana registered the delivery case, noted his position near the system's corridor entrance, and filed him as something Jason would handle. She looked away. Connor noticed her glance. He'd worked in enough commercial buildings to know what that kind of glance meant. He said nothing. The problem started when a young assistant, rushing to hand Logan a stack of documents from the courier cart, clipped the corner of the reception desk and sent a folder to the floor. The papers fanned across the marble. A few landed near Connor's feet. He crouched to help gather them, and among the scattered papers, a folded document of his own fell out of the side pocket of his jacket, an old certification card, kept out of habit more than purpose. His Level 3 elevator systems maintenance certification, issued 7 years ago, and last renewed 4 years back. The laminate was beginning to peel at one corner. Logan Harris saw it. "What's this?" he said, picking it up before Connor could reach it. He held it up, squinting at it. "You're a certified elevator tech?" His tone was pleasant in the way of someone who has already decided the answer is funny. "Used to be," Connor said, reaching for it. Logan handed it back with a small smile. "That's cute. I guess everyone's got a side hustle." Diana had stopped walking. She looked at Connor more directly now, then at the delivery case, then back at his face. Something in her expression shifted, not open, not curious, just recalibrating slightly. Connor spoke then, calmly, without accusation. "The component I'm delivering auxiliary control board for the VIP elevator system. Your facility's request marked it as urgent. Whoever signs for it should make sure it gets to your maintenance team before that elevator runs again." There was a half-second of silence. Diana's expression closed. He was a delivery driver telling her how to manage her building. In front of Logan, in front of Catherine, in front of the guests beginning to filter into the lobby for the evening event. She drew herself up slightly and said it clearly, with the cool precision of someone who has never needed to raise her voice to make a point land. "You're just a delivery driver. Leave the systems to people who actually belong here." The lobby didn't go entirely silent. But there was that quality, a held breath. People suddenly finding other things to look at. One of the desk assistants examined her keyboard. A passing executive adjusted his jacket and moved on. Connor did not flinch. He did not respond. He looked at Diana once, with an expression that was neither hurt nor angry, just steady. Then he looked down at Mia, who had heard every word, whose dark eyes had gone shiny at their edges. He bent down and retied her shoelace, which had already been tied perfectly. "You're okay," he murmured. "We're almost done." Diana signed the delivery log that Catherine wordlessly extended to her, returned the stylus, and walked toward the south conference corridor. Logan followed, shaking his head in faint amusement. Mia watched the woman walk away. "Why didn't you tell her you know about elevators?" she asked. Connor straightened up. It wasn't the right time. But she was mean. She was. Doesn't that matter? He picked up the delivery scanner and started tapping in the confirmation. "It matters," he said. "But right now what matters is that somebody important gets that part." He nodded toward the case. "Not everybody needs to know who you are, Mia. but you always need to know who you are. The delivery was signed. The control board sat in its case on the reception desk, waiting to be handed off to the building's internal courier. That handoff should have taken 5 minutes. Instead, the reception assistant marked it as standard incoming inventory and tagged it for evening processing. It would wait in the supply queue. Connor knew this was wrong. He stood near the elevator bank, writing in the confirmation on his scanner, and made a point of asking the desk assistant directly to mark it as a priority routing. "I'll flag it," she said, in the tone of someone who wouldn't. He considered saying more. He considered asking for Jason Reed, the head of building security, whose name appeared on the building directory behind the desk. He considered walking the case to the maintenance corridor himself. Then he thought about Mia watching him push for something he'd already been told wasn't his concern. He thought about the way Diana Pierce had looked at him. He thought about how many times in his life he'd done the right thing in the wrong building and been made to feel like an intruder for it. He let it go. He would regret that for the next 12 minutes. The VIP elevator returned to the lobby at 5:22. Carrying a catering cart operator who had briefly held it at the service floor. As the door slid closed again, a 7-year-old girl stepped inside. Ella Pierce had been brought to the building by her mother's driver after school. She had a piano lesson Monday and Thursday, an art enrichment program on Wednesday, and no particular place she especially wanted to be on a Friday evening except somewhere her mother might also be. She was 7 years old, already good at understanding that her mother's time was not entirely hers, and still young enough for that understanding to hurt quietly. Diana had told Catherine to watch for Ella. Catherine had been intercepted by Logan in the third-floor corridor with a folder of contracts that could not wait. Ella had arrived in the lobby just as the main elevator doors opened, and no one was standing there to meet her. The lobby assistant pointed her toward the executive floors and told her she could take the VIP elevator up. Ella pressed the button for the 31st floor. The doors closed. At the reception desk, Connor was gathering his scanner and his jacket, already running through the familiar math of the evening, whether he had enough for hot chocolate at the place Mia liked, whether the grocery run could wait until morning. He looked up once at the elevator display panel on the lobby wall. Habit, not intent. He watched the number climb past 19, past 20, then it stuttered. 21, 21, 21. The display froze. The floor indicator jumped, then stuck again. The panel registered a status light that turned from green to a dim amber. Connor knew what amber meant on a commercial elevator system. It meant the cabin had not completed a floor alignment. It meant something was holding it. He didn't move yet. He kept watching the display. The number did not change. Mia looked up at him. "Dad?" He raised one finger just a moment and kept his eyes on the panel. The number held at 21. The amber light was steady, and then, from somewhere above the lobby ceiling, through ducts and concrete and 24 floors of insulated silence, came the sound of a small voice. It was not a loud sound. That was what made it worse. If Ella had screamed the way children scream on playgrounds or in movies, someone might have dismissed it as the echo of a TV on a high floor or a door slamming in the parking structure. But Ella's voice came through the building's intercom system in short, broken pieces, not a scream, but something quieter and more frightening than that. "Hello? Is anyone there? I think something is wrong." The lobby PA crackled and then went still. 2 guests waiting near the front entrance looked at the ceiling. The desk assistant reached for her radio. Jason Reed came through the south door at a near jog, radio already in hand. He had been monitoring the elevator display from the security station and had seen the same amber status light 30 seconds before Connor. Diana Pierce was back in the lobby in less than 2 minutes, Catherine at her heels. She had been in the corridor outside the conference room when Catherine's earpiece picked up the intercom alert. The walk from there to the lobby elevator panel was 40 seconds. Diana moved as though she had been waiting her whole career to walk that fast. She reached the control panel and pressed the intercom button herself. "Ella. Ella, it's Mom. Are you there?" A pause. Crackling. Then, "Mom." Just that. One syllable, small and flat with relief and fear combined. "I'm here. Are you okay?" There's a smell, like something burning but not fire. And the lights keep doing a thing. Diana looked at Jason. Her face had not changed, but something behind it had. The CEO was still there. So was the mother. They were looking at each other, over a very thin line. Jason was already on his radio to the maintenance floor. "We've got a cabin lock on VIP elevator at 21. Need Aiden Cole on site now." He looked up. Cole's still 15 minutes out, traffic on the bridge. Logan Harris materialized from somewhere near the conference room doors. He assessed the situation with the practiced efficiency of a man who had spent 20 years deciding which fires were worth putting out in public. "What's our exposure here?" he said quietly to Catherine. Catherine stared at him. The Hathaway Group and the Carlyle representatives were already moving toward the lobby after hearing the activity. Logan positioned himself to intercept them. "Small mechanical issue," he said, voice smooth and reassuring. "We'll have it sorted momentarily. If you'd like to head up to the reception floor via the east stairs, we can." "Logan." Diana's voice was not loud, but it cut through the lobby like a blade. He stopped. "Get out of the way," she said. Ella's voice came through the intercom again. She was coughing now. Short, tight coughs that didn't sound like illness. They sounded like irritation, like something in the air was wrong. Connor was still standing near the reception desk. He had not left. He had not been asked to stay. He watched Diana at the panel, watched Jason on the radio, watched the amber light on the elevator display that had not changed in 4 minutes. He ran the calculation in his head without meaning to. Auxiliary thermal fault. Cabin locked between floors. Possible arc in the secondary wiring. A child inside. He set his scanner on the desk. He took one step toward the panel, and then another. Jason saw him coming. "Sir, this area is restricted. I'm going to need you to..." "Floor 21, cabin locked on the upstroke," Connor said. He wasn't talking to Jason. He was reading the panel. "Your auxiliary board has a thermal fault and it's been running since before I got here. The reason your cabin won't reinitialize is because the safety lock engaged when the temperature threshold hit. You've got maybe 7 or 8 minutes before the secondary wiring produces enough heat to push smoke into the cabin." Silence. Diana turned from the panel and looked at him fully for the first time. Not at his uniform, at his face. "Whoever's in that elevator," Connor continued, keeping his voice level, "needs to know not to press any buttons, not to try to force the doors, and to get low and breathe slow if they smell anything electrical." Diana's hand moved to the intercom before he finished speaking. Logan moved between Connor and the panel. "We don't know who this person is," he said, directing the words at Jason rather than Diana. "We have no verification that he has any qualified..." "I read the fault code on your display," Connor said. "EA7, with a temperature flag. That's not a general fault. That's an auxiliary board overheat. I know what that code means because I've replaced the boards that produce it." Jason looked at the display. Looked at Connor. "I can't authorize an unverified individual to interact with building systems." "I'm not asking to touch anything," Connor said. "I'm asking someone to listen to what I'm telling you." Catherine had pulled out her phone. She was scrolling quickly, not distracted, hunting. She found the delivery manifest from the past hour's intake log. Connor Blake, route driver, Henderson Logistics. Before that, she pulled up the building's own vendor history in the facility's database. A name appeared in a 2-year-old maintenance contract, Blake C., Certified Elevator Systems Technician, Level 3. She held the phone up toward Diana without comment. Diana looked at it, looked at Connor. The air between them had a different quality now than it had 40 minutes ago. Connor spoke to the intercom. "Ella," he said. He used her name without being told it. He had heard Diana say it. "My name is Connor. I'm standing in the lobby with your mom. Can you hear me?" A pause. "Yes. Good. I need you to do something for me. Can you sit down on the floor of the elevator? Not near the doors. In the middle, if you can. And take your jacket off if you have one." "Why?" "Because the floor is cooler and that's going to help you breathe easier. Your mom is right here. She can hear everything you say." Diana's hand went to the panel again. She pressed the intercom button and said, very quietly, "Do what he says, sweetheart." The intercom rustled. Then, "Okay, I'm sitting down." Connor turned back to Jason. "Your VIP elevator has a manual override access panel in the maintenance corridor on the 21st floor. If you can get someone up the east stairwell with a bypass key, the cabin can be pinned to the floor position and the doors open from the outside. But the secondary power feed to that elevator needs to be cut at the auxiliary junction first. That junction is in the basement mechanical room. Jason had stopped arguing. He was listening. If someone trips the wrong breaker down there, the safety lock releases and the cabin could drop to the nearest floor uncontrolled. It needs to be the auxiliary breaker only. It's labeled, or it was labeled, 2 years ago when I serviced a building on this same design. Usually in a gray panel, labeled AUX VE, second row. I've got Deming in the basement right now, Jason said into his radio. He relayed what Connor had said, word for word. Logan stepped back. Not because he agreed, because the room had shifted and he could feel it. Mia had been standing near the reception desk this entire time, watching her father with the quiet, wide-eyed attention of a child who has learned not to interrupt something important. Catherine crouched down beside her and asked if she'd like to sit in one of the chairs near the window. Mia nodded. She didn't let go of her rabbit backpack. Diana looked at Connor across the panel. She did not apologize. Not yet. But her voice, when she spoke, had lost the sharp edge it carried in nearly every interaction she had. Can you get her out? Connor held her gaze. I can help get her out. I need your security team to work with me, and I need that auxiliary board, the one I delivered, brought up here right now. Diana turned to the desk assistant. Get me that package. Right now. The assistant was already moving. While Jason coordinated with the basement and Catherine relayed updates to the east stairwell team, the lobby settled into a concentrated hush. The shareholder guests had been quietly escorted to the 32nd floor by a staff member who did not fully understand the situation but understood that someone important had asked her to handle it. Logan Harris had retreated to a position near the corridor, where he held his phone and watched. Catherine came to stand near Connor while they waited for the auxiliary board to be retrieved from the intake queue. You said you replaced these boards before, she said. It wasn't quite a question. 6 years in commercial elevator maintenance, he said. Mostly hospitals and high-rises. Then, 2 years on emergency response building rescue, mostly. After my wife passed, I couldn't keep the on-call schedule. Mia was 3. He said it the way people do when they've said it enough times that it no longer requires softening. Matter of fact. Not a bid for sympathy. Catherine nodded. She didn't say she was sorry. He seemed like the kind of person who had been sorried enough. Diana had heard. She was close enough to the panel that the conversation reached her in full, and she did not pretend otherwise. She stood with her back to them, both hands resting flat on the edge of the control desk, shoulders tight in a way that had nothing to do with the emergency and everything to do with the thought she was having about herself. She also was a single parent. She had built Pierce Global's reputation on the principle that capability and credentials were the only meaningful currency, that the rest was noise. She had spent 2 years making decisions with that principle as her foundation, and most of those decisions had been right. The problem with principles applied too tightly was that they eventually cut the hand that held them. Connor crouched near the intercom again. Ella, still with me? Still here. Her voice was smaller. Tiring. Tell me something. What's your favorite color? A pause. Blue. Like medium blue. Not too dark. Good choice. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to count to 4. On every 4, I want you to take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. Can you do that with me? I can try. He counted aloud, quietly, unhurried. 1, 2, 3, 4. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out. He did it 3 times. Ella matched him on the second round. Her breathing, audible through the intercom, steadied slightly. Mia, from her chair by the window, was watching. She knew this, not the specific technique, but the shape of it. She had seen her father do this in the dark of her bedroom. After bad dreams, the same low voice, the same patient counting. She stood up from the chair and walked carefully to the edge of the desk. She was too small to reach the intercom button, so she tugged Connor's sleeve. He looked down. Can I say something to her? Mia asked. Connor looked at Diana. Diana looked at her daughter's name on the intercom display. She pressed the button and stepped back. Mia leaned toward the panel. Hi. My name is Mia. I used to be really scared of small places after my mom died. My dad taught me this counting thing. It works. You're doing good. The intercom was quiet for a moment. Then Ella's voice came back, thinner and younger than it had been all evening. Thank you, Mia. The auxiliary control board arrived at the desk wrapped in its foam case, still sealed. Connor took it without speaking and carried it to the maintenance corridor entrance. Jason fell into step beside him. I need to be clear, Jason said. I'm not authorizing modifications to building systems by an uncertified individual. What I'm doing is allowing you to consult while I implement. That works, Connor said. If you try to do anything outside of consultation, Jason. Connor stopped walking and looked at him directly. There's a kid in that box. I'm not here to create liability for you. Tell me what you need me to do, and I'll tell you what I know. That's all. Jason held the look for a moment. Then he pushed the corridor door open. The maintenance corridor behind the lobby was a narrow service passage with fluorescent lighting and gray-painted cinder block walls, as different from the marble lobby as the inside of a wristwatch from its face. Conduit runs and cable trays ran overhead. A junior maintenance tech named Deming was already on the radio with his counterpart in the basement. Connor examined the secondary systems panel mounted on the wall at the elevator bank. It was a standard installation, the same manufacturer he had worked with at a hospital uptown 7 years before. The layout had not changed. He identified the auxiliary circuit breaker in under 90 seconds. He pointed to it, told Deming exactly what to relay to the basement, and stepped back. 3 minutes later, the amber status light on the display shifted. Auxiliary power isolated, the basement tech said over the radio. No drop in the main cabin circuit. Cabin is holding position. Connor exhaled once. Good. Now your override panel on 21. Does your stairwell team have the bypass key? Jason confirmed it. The team in the east stairwell had reached the 21st floor. Connor asked Jason for the radio. The mechanism on the floor access panel is a 2-turn counterclockwise bypass, Connor said into the radio. Don't try to force it. It'll resist at the halfway point. That's normal. Keep even pressure. Once you hear a secondary click, the cabin is mechanically locked to floor level, and the door will open manually. He waited. In the lobby, Diana stood at the intercom panel. Her hands had stopped moving. She was still talking to Ella in a low, steady voice, telling her about nothing in particular, that it was raining outside, that the cafe downstairs was still open, that they would go there as soon as this was done. Her voice had a new quality to it that Catherine had never heard in 2 years. It was unguarded. Logan Harris had sent 2 messages in the past 10 minutes, both to members of his operations team, both carefully worded. He was beginning to think about the sequence of decisions that had led to this moment, and which of those decisions would be most visible in the morning. The radio crackled. We're at the halfway point. There's resistance. Hold steady, Connor said. Even pressure, don't release. A pause. 8 seconds. Click. Secondary lock engaged. Cabins pinned. Open the door manually. Slow. Don't use power. A long pause. The lobby, 2 floors below and 40 meters away, was so quiet that the hum of the building's ventilation system was audible. Then, doors are open. We've got her. Diana made a sound. It was not loud. It was barely a sound at all, just the shape of a breath that had been held for 18 minutes, releasing all at once. Connor handed the radio back to Jason and walked out of the maintenance corridor. Through the lobby, toward the elevator bank, he could hear voices coming down through the stairwell intercom, Ella's voice and the voices of the response team, and then the sound of footsteps, which meant she was moving, which meant she was okay. The east stairwell door opened. Ella came through it supported by 2 of Jason's team, a jacket draped over her shoulders, her hair slightly disheveled, a faint shadow under her eyes from the strain. She was upright. She was breathing. Diana was across the lobby before anyone could count 3 seconds. She dropped to her knees on the marble floor and put both arms around her daughter, and Ella put both arms around her mother, and neither of them said anything for a long moment. The building's paramedic team, staged near the south entrance, moved forward. Ella cooperated with them quietly, holding still for the assessment. She had no signs of smoke inhalation. Her oxygen levels were normal. The electrical smell had come from a minor arc in a faulty relay, enough to produce odor and heat, not enough to produce combustion. If the elevator had continued operating for another 10 to 15 minutes, the outcome could have been different. Ella looked up from the paramedic's examination and found Connor standing a few feet away. She looked at his uniform, the faded beige, the company patch, the same uniform her mother had seen and dismissed 2 hours ago. "Are you the delivery man?" she asked. Connor nodded. "You helped me breathe," Ella said. Connor crouched down to her level. "You helped yourself breathe. I just gave you something to count to." She considered this. Then she looked over her shoulder at her mother, who was still kneeling on the floor, one arm around Ella's back, the other pressed to her own face. When Diana lowered her hand, her eyes were wet. She looked at Connor over her daughter's head. He met her gaze and did not look away. Aiden Cole arrived at 6:43, moving fast and breathing harder than usual from the run through the parking structure. He went straight to the maintenance corridor with Jason and spent 12 minutes examining the elevator system before he came back out and stood at the edge of the lobby group. "Whoever isolated the auxiliary circuit did it right," he said. "If they hadn't, we'd probably be looking at a full cabin power failure within the next 10 minutes. He paused. "Who made the call?" Jason pointed with his radio. Aiden looked at Connor. He recognized the type immediately, not the uniform, but the way the man was standing, the way he'd positioned himself near the system controls without being asked, and without making it a performance. The look of someone who had done real work. "Good call," Aiden said. Connor nodded. Aiden turned to Diana. "The auxiliary board that was delivered today, that's the component your maintenance calendar scheduled for installation before the VIP elevator went back online. According to your facilities log, the install was flagged for this evening." "It wasn't installed," Diana said. "No, it was in the intake queue." Aiden's voice was neutral. He was not in the business of assigning blame. "But the information sat in the room and did its own work." Diana looked at Logan. Logan looked at the floor, then at Jason, then at the ceiling, the performance of a man buying 3 seconds to find the right first word. "The morning report showed the fault as low priority," Logan said. "I made a judgment call that it didn't warrant disrupting the schedule." "Catherine," Diana said, without raising her voice. Catherine was already holding her tablet. She turned it so the screen was visible. The internal communication thread was open. Logan's message to the facilities coordinator, sent at 2:17 that afternoon. "Downgrade the VIP elevator flag to routine maintenance. We need that lobby clear and functional for the shareholder event. Aiden can handle it after." Catherine did not say anything. She simply held the tablet until Diana had read it. Logan started to speak. Diana stopped him with one look. "You will go home tonight," she said. "You will not speak to anyone in this building or on our staff about what happened today. You will not communicate with board members or investors about this event. The legal team will be in contact with you tomorrow morning." "Diana, I'm not asking," she said. Logan Harris left the lobby of Pierce Global Tower at 6:51. He walked to the elevator bank, pressed the button, and waited. Then appeared to think better of it and turned toward the stairs. Connor had been watching this without comment from a position near the lobby seating area, his jacket over one arm, and his delivery scanner clipped to his belt. Mia was beside him, leaning slightly against his shoulder, the rabbit backpack in her lap. She was tired, that particular tiredness of a child who has held herself very still for too long and is now releasing it all at once. He picked up the scanner. He had done what there was to do. He didn't need the rest. He was halfway to the entrance when Diana's voice came from behind him. "Mr. Blake." He stopped. He turned around. She was standing in the center of the lobby, Ella at her side, one arm still around her daughter's shoulders. She looked at him the way you look at something you have reassessed completely and found yourself wrong about, and she didn't try to hide that calculation. "Please don't go yet," she said. The lobby was not empty. The paramedic team was packing up near the east wall. Jason was at the control desk. Several staff members lingered near the corridor entrance. The shareholder guests had filtered back down and stood in a cluster near the front, processing what they had witnessed. None of them had been told to leave. Diana Pierce had spent 2 years building a reputation for never being caught off balance, for being the smartest person in any room in the building she owned, for making every decision look deliberate, even the ones that cost her. She walked across the lobby until she was standing directly in front of Connor. She was not taller than him, but she had always been able to make herself seem taller through the architecture of her posture alone. She did not do that now. This afternoon, she said. I said something to you in front of a room full of people, and it was wrong. I used your job title to make you feel like you had no standing here, like your knowledge and your experience had no value because the name on your jacket wasn't the right name. She paused not for effect, just the pause of someone making sure they're saying what they mean. That was wrong. And I'm sorry. Connor held still. You knew something was wrong with that elevator before any of us took it seriously. You tried to say so. I cut you off. Her voice stayed level. If you had walked out of this building after that, if you had decided it wasn't your problem anymore, I would have understood it. I wouldn't have had any right to be angry about it. She looked at him for a moment. But you stayed, and I don't know if I deserve that, so I'm asking you to accept what I owe you anyway. The lobby was quiet. Not the held breath kind of quiet from earlier, but the settling kind. The kind that comes after something has been said out loud that everyone knew needed saying. Connor looked at her for a moment. Then he looked down at Mia, who had been watching Diana with the particular seriousness of a child measuring an adult. Can I ask you something? Mia said. Diana crouched down to Mia's level without hesitation. It was the first completely unguarded physical movement she had made all evening. Yes, she said. When someone makes you feel bad on purpose, Mia said slowly, working through the words like they mattered, and then they say sorry. Does that make it better? My dad says it's supposed to, but I couldn't tell. Diana held the girl's gaze. Ella, standing just behind her mother, watched Mia with open curiosity. The two of them, one in a school blazer, one in a jacket with a rabbit backpack, were remarkably similar in the way they held their faces when they were thinking hard. I think it helps, Diana said finally. It doesn't take the bad feeling away all the way, but it means the person knows they did something wrong, and that matters. She glanced up at Connor, then back at Mia. I'm sorry that you had to hear what I said today. You didn't deserve that. Mia thought about this. She pulled one of the rabbit backpack's ears into her lap and examined it. Then she looked up. I forgive you, she said, but maybe don't say things like that to the next delivery person, either. A few of the bystanders near the corridor entrance made small sounds that weren't quite laughs. Diana straightened up. Something in her face had shifted from careful to real just slightly, just at the edges. She turned to her staff. The shareholder event is postponed, she said. I want a full safety audit of this building's elevator systems before any of those doors run again. Tonight, no one argued. The paramedics released Ella with a clean bill of health at 7:15. Diana sat with her in the lobby cafe for 20 minutes afterward, both of them with cups of hot chocolate thick and not too sweet. Ella fell asleep against her mother's shoulder within minutes, which was the best possible sign. Connor had been preparing to leave for the third time when Catherine appeared at his elbow. She's going to ask you something, Catherine said quietly. I want to give you a heads up so you have a moment to think about it. Connor waited. There will be an offer of compensation. Significant compensation. And I think I say this with respect, that whatever your first instinct is about it, you should hear the whole offer before you decide. Why? Catherine glanced toward the cafe. Because I've worked for Diana Pierce for 2 years and I've seen her try to fix a lot of things with a check. I don't think she's going to do that this time. But I wanted you to be ready in case it surprises you. When Diana joined them, she was without her executive posture, or rather it was still there, but it had become a different structure. Not armor, just bearing. I could tell you that a figure will appear in your account by Monday, Diana said. That would be the clean version. You saved my daughter's life. There's a number for that. She paused. But I don't think you'd take it. No, Connor said simply. Then let me say something else. She sat down across from him at one of the cafe tables, without asking if he wanted to sit, just making it an option. This building is not the only one we own. Pierce Global has 14 properties across 3 cities, and in the past 2 years we've had 3 separate incidents where a facility's oversight nearly became a liability. Tonight was the 4th. We have no one on staff whose primary role is independent systems safety review. We outsource it, which is why there was no one here tonight who knew what that fault code meant. Connor listened. I looked at your service history while Ella was being evaluated. 6 years in commercial systems, emergency response qualification. Not a single formal complaint on record. You left the industry because of your family, not because of your ability. She folded her hands on the table. I'd like to offer you a consulting role. Part-time, at least to start. Safety evaluation and incident response readiness. Your schedule remains yours. I'm not interested in taking you away from Mia. We'd work around her school calendar. I'm not current on my certifications, Connor said. Pierce Global would cover the cost and time to renew them. That's not negotiable, it's just standard process. She met his eyes. This isn't charity, Mr. Blake. I need someone in this role, and you are qualified for it. Those are the only two facts that matter. Connor was quiet for a moment. He looked toward the lobby seating area, where Mia had curled up, her rabbit backpack tucked under her chin like a stuffed animal rather than a bag. He thought about the things you set down when life requires it. How long they can sit before you stop being able to find them again. He thought about Mia, at the intercom panel, telling a frightened girl in a dark elevator that the counting thing worked. I'll think about it, he said. Diana nodded. That, too, seemed like the right answer. There's something else, Connor said. He reached into his jacket pocket and placed a small card on the table, the number of a pediatric respiratory specialist he'd once worked with at the hospital. The card was worn at the corners. Ella should have an inhaler in her bag. Not just at home. Diana looked at the card, then at him. She does now, she said quietly. 3 weeks later, Connor Blake walked through the front entrance of Pierce Global Tower for the first time, without a delivery scanner in his hand. He wore his usual clothes, dark jeans, a gray pullover, a jacket that wasn't new. He carried a credential in his wallet, freshly issued after a weekend recertification course that Pierce Global had arranged and paid for. It had taken him 2 attempts at the practical portion, not because he had forgotten anything, but because he hadn't slept well the night before, thinking about whether he was doing the right thing. He had asked Mia in the morning. She had been eating toast at the kitchen table, swinging her feet because the chairs were still too tall for her. She thought about it for a full 30 seconds. He appreciated that she didn't answer immediately and then said, "If you fix things that keep people safe, and you're good at it, then you should probably do it. Right?" He had fixed her hair, kissed the top of her head, and driven her to school. Diana Pierce had implemented 3 changes in the building since the incident. The first was a new escalation protocol requiring any technical fault in occupied building systems to be flagged as critical until cleared by a qualified technician, regardless of the impact on scheduled events. The second was a standing weekly briefing with facilities staff that she attended personally. The third change was less procedural. She had simply started noticing people. The woman who cleaned the executive floor every night between 8 and 10. The security officer who had worked the overnight desk for 11 years. The drivers who brought supplies to the loading dock. She had started saying good morning to them by name. It was a small thing. It was also the only kind of change that lasts. Ella and Mia had met 3 times since the incident. The first time was brief and a little formal, in the lobby cafe with both parents present. The second time, Diana had asked Connor if Mia might like to join Ella for a visit to the museum's children's science exhibit on a Saturday. Connor had said he thought Mia would like that very much. The third time, they had simply run into each other in the lobby when Connor was finishing a walkthrough assessment, and the 2 girls had conducted an entire conversation about which animals were the most unfairly underrated while the adults stood nearby and said almost nothing. On a Tuesday morning in early November, Connor was finishing a review of the mechanical room on the basement level when he heard footsteps in the lobby above, slightly faster than usual, slightly hesitant. He came up the stairwell to find a young man in a delivery uniform standing near the entrance, holding a package and looking uncertain about where to go. 2 staff members had walked past him without stopping. Diana was crossing the lobby from the conference wing. She saw the delivery driver. She paused. Connor watched from the stairwell doorway. Diana walked to the entrance. She held the door open herself. "Thank you for coming in," she said to the young man, clearly and without hurry. "We've been waiting for this one." The driver blinked, surprised. He managed a thank you and followed her directions to the desk. Connor leaned against the doorframe and watched her walk away across the marble floor. He did not call out to her. He did not need to. Some lessons don't require a speech. They just require someone standing in a lobby, holding a door open for a stranger, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Because it was. Because it always had been. It just took the right reminder.